We live in a time where certain situations are not taken seriously, whether that be socially or legally. Something that always comes to mind are cases of stalking. Still today, you especially see this with very popular Twitch streamers who report what is happening, and even with evidence, law enforcement does very little to relieve the victim from any possible harm, and people on social media continue to dismiss these people's experiences, saying things like, "It's all for attention, just ignore it, who cares?" It's safe to say that this type of behavior and the response towards it has not changed. A case that has always stuck out to me was one that happened in Japan in the late 90s. Today's video is going to be covering the very unfortunate case of Shiori Ino, a case that has always upset me even to this day, from the way it was handled to what happened after. Join me as we take a look into one of the worst stalking cases Japan has ever seen. Okigawa Stalker Satsujin Jiken, the Okigawa stalker murder case of Japan. A 20-year-old girl was with her friend at the game center in Saitama, Japan, having a regular day of fun. A game center are places in Japan where you can go to play all types of games like slot machines, video games, and lots of pikura machines. I went to one in Ikebukuro, and they're a lot of fun. My friend and I played a game there that was just like Guitar Hero, but with giant bongos. Highly recommend. At some point, Shiori and her friend were struggling to enter coins into one of the machines, when Kazuhito Komatsu took notice and approached the two. After assisting, he then asked them if they would like to join him and his friends for a night of karaoke. Once there, the two got very close, and it would have been a very cute love story. You see, Kazuhito Komatsu had initially given her a fake name. He was a 26-year-old who operated a series of massage parlors which acted as fronts for brothels. He operated these with his brother, Takeshi, who was a firefighter. What he had told Shiori was that he was a 23-year-old who was an entrepreneur who dealt with cars, real estate, and very precious metals. Komatsu and Shiori had gone on a few dates, and things were going very well. But things began to take a turn when Komatsu started purchasing and gifting very expensive items in hopes to wow Shiori. This ranged anywhere from Louis Vuitton bags and Gucci suits. Shiori was very taken aback by these gifts, and would sometimes not accept them. When she would decline, Komatsu would begin to scream at her and claim abuse. Despite this, they continued dating, and she had provided him with her phone number. As things progressed, Komatsu started making phone calls to her home. The strange thing about this is, Shiori never provided her home phone number. So as you might imagine, this frightened Ino, and she eventually realized that Komatsu was lying about who he really was. She discovered a credit card with his real name on it. So, she tried to end the relationship, but Komatsu would threaten her until she decided to stay with him. So in fear for her life, she stayed. Abuse of any kind can be extremely difficult, and even more difficult to get out of. Things began to get so bad that Shiori had written a will out of fear of her own life. She had tried to break things off with her boyfriend, but after he threatened her family with violence, and lying to them about Shiori harming her younger brother, she decided to stick with the relationship once again. This occurred on March 30th. On June 14th, the two met at a cafe, and Ino strictly stated she did not want to see him again, and was very strong with her intentions and tone. After the cafe, Komatsu, his brother Takeshi, and another friend went to Ino's home and threatened her and her mother. Along with this, they falsely accused Shiori of embezzlements that were actually committed by Komatsu himself. When Shiori's father came home, they also threatened him. Not being someone who stands down from threats, he shrugged it off, told them to leave, and ordered them to take the gifts back they had given Shiori. The family reconvened, and thankfully, Shiori had recorded the audio of the whole altercation and the next day presented the audio to the Saitama Prefecture Police in Ageo. One of the officers was completely bothered and angered by this, and they took action immediately. Is what I wish I could have said. Despite one officer angered by the actions of the men, the other officers had informed Shiori that she had no case and chose not to pursue any further. The same day, on June 15th, Shiori and her family received a call from a man who identified himself as Tanaka and demanded they return the gifts. This was then followed by about 20 silent calls. The silent calls lasted for 4 months, stopping on October 26th. Constant calls with no one on the other end, with the intent to harass and scare the family. Now, at this point, you're all probably asking yourselves, why didn't the police do anything about this? She clearly had enough evidence. The thing about this case is this was before Japan had strong laws regarding stalking. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, stalking is often seen as a harmless crime. With everything that has happened thus far, Shiori again, for the second time, went to the police with even more evidence. The crazy part about this second visit, the police again refused to take action, and going as far to say she was at fault for breaking up with someone who was so infatuated by her after accepting such expensive gifts. The police then suggested she go to the free legal clinic to seek assistance. Upset and defeated, she goes to the only option she has left, and after a 15-minute consultation, the lawyer also dismissed her case, stating, "But she had a lot of things bought for her, right?" The next day, with no one to help her, Shiori receives another call, but this time there was no silence. It was Komatsu, and he demanded she get back together with him, in which Shiori rightfully declines and mentions she has gone to the police. Komatsu then gets angry and hangs up the phone. Shiori then returned all the gifts he had sent her on June 21st, and the following day, Takeshi met with a 33-year-old man named Yoshifumi Kubota, who was a former manager at one of their massage parlors. Takeshi presented a 20 million yen murder-for-hire scheme on behalf of Komatsu. After looking it over, Kubota accepted and recruited 2 acquaintances, Akira Kawakami and Yoshitaka Ito. Their plan was simple. Komatsu would flee to Naha in Okinawa to build an alibi for the planned assassination of Shiori Ino. While he was there, harassment and stalking was committed by the other 3 men. This occurred for 4 months. They would hang hundreds of posters and letters slandering Ino and her father, and were distributed throughout the neighborhood and her father's place of work. For a 3rd time, the family went to the police with these letters and posters in hand, as well as photos of license plates and other evidence, and for a 3rd time, they were declined any assistance. At this point, they pressed libel charges, which is another word for defamation. Senior precinct officers were worried that having unsolved open cases would hurt their standing at the station, so these charges were met with obstruction, until the family just gave up and left. While this was happening, Kubota, Kawakami, and Ito were watching Ino with her photo in hand and stalking her at train stations and other locations she frequented to plan their killing of the 21-year-old. On October 26, 1999, Ino had left her home on a bicycle and headed to Okigawa Station to begin her journey to her afternoon college classes. Shiori being unaware, Ito had been watching her from a nearby car. He alerted Kawakami, who then drove Kubota to the station she was going to and dropped him off. Ino arrived at the station, and as she was getting off her bicycle, Kubota stabbed her once in the side. Ino turned and was stabbed again, this time directly in the heart. Shiori was rushed to Ageo Central General Hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 12:50 p.m. Cause of death: shock due to massive bleeding. Immediately after the murder, Saitama police began a disinformation campaign against Shiori, claiming she was a promiscuous flirt who had a taste for expensive brands. If this wasn't bad enough on its own, tabloids and mainstream media also jumped on this campaign. Their sources claimed Shiori had worked as an escort and exacerbated the stories even more. The Komatsu brothers and their acquaintances were not arrested until my goat, Kiyoshi Shimizu, decided to investigate the case himself. A journalist, Shimizu conducted a report which was published in the magazine Focus, outlined the whole ordeal with Komatsu, accompanied by a photo of her stalker as well. This story always makes me so upset, but I am glad Kiyoshi did what he did, as this was the start of at least something somewhat good coming from this case. On December 19th, 1999, Kubota was arrested, and the next day, Takeshi, Kawakami, and Ito were also arrested. 8 other people were also arrested on January 16th, 2000 for assisting with the assassination of Shiori as well. A warrant was issued for Komatsu. He eventually found his way to Sapporo, Hokkaido, where he was eventually tracked down by Shimizu. On January 27th, 2000, Komatsu's corpse was found in a lake in Teshikaga. He had committed suicide and planned to do so, indicated by a note that was found in his luggage. Following an investigation, 6 officers were disciplined and 3 senior police officers were fired and indicted on a documents falsification charge over their refusal to process the charges brought by Ino during Komatsu's harassment campaign. On December 22nd, 2000, Ino's family sued the Saitama police. On February 16th, 2003, a district court ruled that the police would have to pay consultation money, but denied that police neglect had anything to do with Ino's murder. Can you imagine the amount of delusion needed to make that claim? They played a huge role in her death, and they were heavily criticized by the media as well. Kubota was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Kawakami and Ito were each sentenced to 15 years in prison. Takeshi was sentenced to life imprisonment. He appealed on September 5th, 2006, but the Supreme Court upheld its original sentence. Shimizu received the Editor's Choice Magazine Journalism Award in 2001 for his tremendous work done during the murder of Shiori Ino. I strongly believe that without him, any sort of justice would not have been served to these people. He also played a huge role in the Ashikaga murder case, where he had helped clear an innocent man from charges regarding that case. So Kiyoshi Shimizu is an actual saint, and I'm glad there was someone like him around during this time. So there you have it. Probably one of the most frustrating cases to ever hear about. I would love to hear what you all think in the comments, as the death of Shiori Ino is one that sticks with many people as a sad example of how very real stalking can be. After this case, a stalking regulation law had taken effect, so I hope these cases are taken much more seriously going forward. The Saitama police really dropped the ball on this one, and it makes me wonder if it were any other police station in Japan, maybe they would have actually helped this poor girl. Due to their neglect, a girl had lost her life, when that could have easily been avoided. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We hit 700 subscribers at the point of recording this video, so thank you guys so much. Every time we hit a milestone like this, I just don't know what to say or what to do. It's so cool. Like, thank you guys. Thank you. Depending on how things go, we're gonna be on track to at least hit 1,000 before the year's over, I hope. As long as I can keep pushing out videos and you know, being entertaining of somehow. So thank you all so much. You can't see right now, but I have like the biggest smile on my face. But anyway, you're appreciated, you matter, and I'll see you in the next one.